Hi there, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing well. In this video, I will show you how to deploy a web application on LAMP stack. I have also created a video on how to install and configure the LAMP stack on Ubuntu. I have put the link in the description. If you have not installed the LAMP stack, you can watch this video shown on the top right corner of this video. This is the architecture and flow diagram of the web application that we are going to deploy on LAMP stack. The user sends a request to Apache web server through some browser such as Google Chrome by specifying the web server's IP address or domain name. Upon receiving the request, Apache knows that the request is for index.php file and so hands it off to PHP engine for processing. The index.php file contains PHP code that interacts with the MySQL database. Once PHP code has finished its work, it generates a response which Apache sends back to user's browser. This response contains data from the database or anything else this PHP code included in the response. These are the steps we will follow to configure and deploy a web application on LAMP stack. First, we will create a database and users table. Then we will create PHP application. Then we will configure and enable virtual host. And finally, we will test our application by accessing it from the browser. Now let's head to the terminal screen and begin the application deployment. Let's first check the version of each component of LAMP stack. Okay, I am using Ubuntu 22 and I'm using Apache version 2452. I'm using 8.12 version of PHP and I'm using MySQL version 8036. Even if you have different versions of these components, the application deployment steps will remain the same. Let's connect with MySQL server. Before we create a database, let's first list all the available databases. These are the databases that are available by default. Now let's create a database named myappdb. Create database myappdb. Show databases. Okay, we can see myappdb. Let's switch to this newly created database so we could create a table in this database. To switch to this database, we can run this command, use myappdb. Now let's create a table named users in this database. Now let's show the table information that I have created in this myappdb. Show tables in myappdb. Let's describe this table. So this table contains three fields: name, email, and country. I have added a link to all the commands and files I have used in this demo in the description section. You can copy them from there. Now let's create a myapp directory for PHP application in the default root directory of Apache Web Server. Let's create a directory named myapp. Okay, myapp directory has been created. Now we will create a PHP file in myapp directory that will contain PHP code to interact with the myappdb database created earlier. Let's name the file index.php. Let me copy the code. Let me explain briefly what this code is doing. So first of all, we are initiating the database connection.
These four fields are very important in establishing the database connection. Make sure you use the correct username and password. In this case, I am on localhost. My username is root, and this is the password for the root user, and this is the name of the database that I created earlier. So this is the database that I want to connect with. This is the password that I set for MySQL's default root user after I installed MySQL server as part of the LAMP stack.
Once the database connection is established, we are inserting a record into the database table, into the users table that we created earlier. And I am inserting these values. Name will be Zan, this will be the email, and then country will be France. Once the data is inserted, then we will fetch all the records inserted in this table. And we will be seeing this message when we access the application in the browser, followed by the records stored in this users table. And finally, we are closing the database connection. Let's save this file. Control X, Y, enter. Before we create and configure a virtual host to process this PHP code, there are two directories in Apache configuration that you must know about. etc Apache 2 sites available and etc Apache 2 sites enabled. All virtual host configuration files are created in sites available directory, but when we enable a virtual host file with a2nsite command, a symbolic link is created in the sites enabled directory that points to the configuration file located in sites available directory. Now let's switch to sites available directory and create a virtual host configuration file to process the PHP code. Let's add a virtual host configuration file. Let's name this file myapp.conf. Let me copy the configuration data. Let's save this file. Now let's enable this newly created virtual host. Sudo a2 insight myapp. You can either type myapp or myapp.conf. It's asking us to run this command. Let me use sudo. Let me get the contents of this myapp.conf. Notice we have updated the document root from var www.html to var www.html myapp. So by default, the document root is set to var www.html. Because I'm not using a custom domain name such as example.com, Apache's default configuration would override my virtual host configuration. This is the default virtual host configuration. Because of this, I need to disable the default website that comes pre-installed with Apache. Let's again reload the configuration. Oh, I forgot to use sudo. Let me cancel it. Sudo. Okay. Now let me switch to sites enable directory. ls-l. You can see we have only one virtual host enabled at this point, and we have a symbolic link that is pointing to virtual host configuration file located in sites available directory. Let's make sure the Apache configuration does not contain any errors. Okay, syntax is okay. So everything is configured. Now we can access our application on the public IP address associated with this machine. Let me get the public IP address. Okay, you can see once I type the IP address, public IP address, I can see the PHP code is able to interact with the database. And here we are getting this information: new record create inserted successfully. And then we are printing all the records that are available in the users table. Now once I refresh this page, you will see a new record will be added. So then we will have two records. Okay, now we have two records. Since we are inserting the same value every time, that's why we see the duplicate row. But you can see ID is different. So our code is interacting with the database correctly. So once I refresh this page again, I can see another record has been inserted. If you are testing this application deployment on your local system, then instead of this public IP address, you will type localhost here. I hope you will be able to deploy an application on LAMP stack without any issues. If there are any issues, you can add a comment and I will get back to you. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.